welcome back to my channel. This is Astrologals and I am back with another video. Today's video is going to be the 5 do's and the 5 don'ts of Mercury Retrograde. I've been feeling a strong pull lately to make this video, so I'm excited to be finally recording this video for you guys. We are currently in Mercury Retrograde right now. Mercury Retrograde occurs 3 to 4 times a year and lasts about 3 to 4 weeks. So save this video and refer to it whenever you're feeling uncomfortable in the Mercury Retrograde energy. I don't think it's a good idea to live your life around Mercury Retrograde, but I do think that it's a good tool to understand why certain things happen in this time period. So first, I think it's important to know a little bit about Mercury. Mercury is the closest and fastest moving planet to the Sun. It orbits in about 88 days, and it rules communication, it rules travel, it rules the mind, it rules technology. So during Mercury Retrograde, you may notice problems in this area of your life. So due to the name that this transit was given, Mercury Retrograde, a lot of people think that Mercury travels backwards during this 3-week period, but this has been proven to be an illusion. So let's go ahead and observe this. Here's a layout of our solar system. Planets closer to the Sun move faster, and outer planets move slower, but they're all going in the same direction. The illusion of Mercury retrograde happens when Mercury laps the Earth because it's moving more quickly than Earth. In the period of the 3 weeks of retrograde, the illusion is that it's actually just lapping us. So the best example I've heard of this illusion is when you're driving on the highway and there's a train alongside you and you're both traveling forward, but you're driving faster, so it appears that the train is going backwards. So that's kind of the illusion of Mercury going retrograde, is that Mercury retrograde is actually just moving more quickly than us when it goes through that 3-week period. And keep in mind, we're also moving, but when it goes through that 3-week period, it looks like it's actually going the opposite direction, and then once it comes back around, it looks like it starts traveling back in the correct direction. And because Mercury is considered a personal planet, we're going to feel like more personal things are happening during this time period. So the reason people may be skeptical of Mercury retrograde is because if Mercury retrograde is an illusion, then how is it affecting us? And with the research I've done and the personal experiences I've had with Mercury retrograde, I think more so the way Mercury affects us is that when it gets closest to us, it's technically in retrograde, which doesn't really make sense of that they call it retrograde. It should be called like closest to Earth. The reason it affects us so much is because it's so close to us that it becomes a more personal experience with that planet. So we're going to have more personal experiences with everything that Mercury rules, which is going to be communication, it's going to be travel, it's going to be, you know, all the things we talked about earlier. Alright, so before we get into the do's and the do-nots, let's go over some key terms that I associate with Mercury retrograde. These keywords are not necessarily things that you should or should not do. They're just keywords to keep in mind when you're going through these 3 weeks. So you might experience problems with technology, you might experience problems with travel delays, flight delays. You may experience problems in the way you're thinking, you might feel more clouded. There may be miscommunication. Things may break, projects may stall, projects may fall through. You may have an emotional breakdown. People might irritate you more than easily. Malfunctions. You may experience mixing up your words. Fender benders or small car issues. You may feel indecisive, and you may notice more obstacles in the way. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with our do's and our do-nots. Alright, so do-not number 1, and this is so important, do not spiral into a negative thinking pattern. Mercury retrograde is a time where we may reflect on things from the past, we may think about things we should have done, could have done better. Because Mercury is so close to us, this is going to cause us to be more in our minds. It's going to cause us to think about things that we might have left unresolved or that might be resurfacing for us. Because things from the past may come up for you to reflect on and revisit, I think it's very important that you don't get stuck on these things, but rather allow yourself to use this as a tool to resolve things from your past. Mercury retrograde sometimes brings up things from the past that may feel uncomfortable, but if you use Mercury retrograde's energy, this is a very powerful time to allow things to come up, to heal and release what no longer resonates with you on a soul level. Alright, so do not number 2. Do not reach out to your exes or allow toxic people back in your life. And this is a huge one. And so many astrologers say this, that Mercury retrograde is a time period where people from your past resurface. And not all of them are going to be toxic people. Not all of them are going to be your exes. An important thing is to not allow your mind to drive you back to somebody that was toxic for you, because we're going to be thinking a lot more, and for some of this we're going to feel a little bit more lonely because we're overthinking things. So this is a very common mistake a lot of people make during Mercury retrograde, and a lot of people regret this. For some of you, you might feel like you're straight up being tested by the universe during Mercury retrograde to see if you've learned from certain karmic lessons. So Mercury retrograde can have us backpedaling down memory lane for things that are coming up for reflection. So don't be surprised if you randomly start thinking about your ex, or if you start thinking about a friend from the past that no longer resonates with you on a soul level. Things are going to come up for reflection. Mercury retrograde is a huge period of going inward and reflecting on what we've grown from and what we've overcome. Alright, so number 3, do not overbook yourself or do not overcommit to plans during Mercury retrograde, because this is a time when your soul truly wants to relax and reconnect with your inner self, with your inner world. So when you're processing a lot internally and you're overbooking your schedule, you're not truly allowing yourself the time you may need to reflect on what might be coming up for you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Alright, so number 4. Do not make any major life decisions during Mercury retrograde, as your mind may be overstimulated, clouded, or straight up not functioning from your higher self. A very common thing that is advised during Mercury retrograde is that you do not sign any major contracts in business. You do not sign any contracts on a new house, on a new car, any major life purchases. Maybe now's a good time to reflect on what we truly want and see if we're feeling the same way when we come out of Mercury retrograde. Alright, so the 5th do not of Mercury retrograde is do not start or initiate any projects during this time period. Now is a great time to revise and go back to things that we've already started and may need to finish. And most of the times when we start things during this period, they usually end up failing. I don't know why, but I've seen it happen many times, and not just within my own life, but with other people. As soon as we come out and go back direct from Mercury retrograde, I've seen so many people totally flip and change their minds, or whatever they're working on totally just like falls apart. So I do advise that you don't start anything major or create anything during this time period, as I think it's a better time to go back and look at what we've already started and how can we tweak these things and how can we reflect on things that we've already created. Alright, so now to the more positive stuff. These are the 5 do's of Mercury retrograde. Alright, so number 1, reattune to your inner reality. Now's a good time to really slow things down and practice patience. What's been trying to present itself to you? What have you maybe been putting off that's been begging for your attention? Pay attention to your emotional needs at this time. Ask yourself how you're truly feeling and consciously reconnect to your higher self. Alright, so number 2, and this word's been coming up a lot, so it's reflect. And I think this is extremely important, as our minds are going to be going haywire and things are not going to be making sense. So naturally, I feel like this is a good time to reflect and to slow things down so you don't feel this energy so harshly. Now's a really good time to sit down and take a look at your goals, see if you've been meeting them, see if you need to make new goals, see how you can recommit to these goals and where you can tweak things around. Mercury retrograde energy has us turning inwards to ourself, within the mind, within our perspectives. So now's a really good time to check in mentally. It kind of feels like a more natural thing. You may feel like you want to spend more time alone during this time period. So for me personally, I find myself needing space from friends, needing space from the outside noise. I find myself getting a little more irritated during this 3-week time period, and you really do have to be careful what you say during Mercury retrograde, because this energy will have you saying things you don't truly mean. So feelings may be hurt during this time. There may be a lot of miscommunication. So I personally think that this is a better time to go within and reflect. Also, a lot of the times I don't like socializing as much during this time period because I get my words mixed up, I say things backwards, I stutter more. Mercury is the closest and fasting move it. Mercury traveling backwards, Mercury, blah. And half the time I don't truly even know how I'm feeling because I got a lot going on up here. And I'm just like, maybe I should just figure out what's going on within before I project things I don't truly mean outwards. Sorry, I just got up because I thought somebody was at me house, but nobody's at me house, so no, I'm a little discombobulated. Thanks, Mercury retrograde. Part of reflection, I think, is a good time to pull away from things that we're overextending our energy toward. So now is a good time to create healthier boundaries from people that might be draining us of our energy. Now is a good time to really look inward and to observe these kind of things. I think during this 3-week time period, a good thing to do during reflection is to take a digital detox of some sort, whether that be if you feel like you're spending too much time on social media. Maybe to put your phone down a few hours a day and have that designated time to just meditate or to reflect or to journal. I think meditation and journaling is extremely important in everyday practices, but especially during this time, I think that's extremely crucial to the energy that we're experiencing. The third do is relax. And I feel like this is a common theme of what you should do during Mercury retrograde. It's very pivotal and extremely important that you take time to slow things down, and I really want to emphasize slowing things down and having patience with where you are on your journey. This is a time that your mind may be trying to process things that have been left unresolved. Therefore, you're naturally going to have things from the past be brought to light. This is a great time for self-love and self-care, also rejuvenation and revitalization. Take time to do what makes you feel good. Whatever you can do to be close to nature at this time is really good. Number 4 is reorganize and clean your space. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world and vice versa. If your space is messy and disorganized, your mind is also probably going to be a little bit chaotic as well. So make sure you take the time to cleanse out your area, that thing you've been putting off. Now's a good time to jump into that, as Mercury retrograde is demanding that we declutter our space so that we may declutter our minds as well. Alright guys, last but not least, the 5th do of Mercury retrograde is release. It's time to release what no longer resonates with us on a soul level. Are we holding on to fear? Are we holding on to judgment? Are we acting from our ego? It's time to release things that are not helping us expand. Mercury retrograde's not here to, mess our lives up or, burn down things that we've worked hard for. Mercury retrograde is here to have us reflect on things that no longer resonate with us. It's trying to catch our attention. It's a good time to release ourselves of negative beliefs, false beliefs. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's video. Those are the 5 do's and the 5 do nots of Mercury retrograde. I'm curious to know, what do you guys experience during Mercury retrograde? I'd love to hear back from you guys in the comment section if any of this resonated with you or what you personally experienced during Mercury retrograde, or if you don't notice it at all. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Take care.